Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Film by Dibakar Banerjee, Khosla Ka Ghosla. Even if you haven't seen the film, the Anupam Kher starrer, then you might remember, you might be familiar with one song from the film, at least one song, which is like its theme song. And that was a bit like written by Jaideep Sani. ये दुनिया ऊट पटांगा किथे लड़ते किथे डांगा. That means ये दुनिया ऊट पटांग है, उल्टी सीधी है. You don't know what happens. So the two stories I tell you today are in that category. They are in that dunya oot patanga category. And both are from the world of business and finance and economy and economics, but more business and finance. Both have an India connection. And also, I'm also responding to a suggestion from many of you that I should look at more than one issue sometimes, at least occasionally. So much so that today I was inclined to take up three, but I'm avoiding the temptation of taking the third one, because the third one might make a cut the clutter by itself. That's, as we are speaking, developing and becoming more interesting. So before I let you go today, I will tell you what that is going to be about, although I will not talk about that today. Now the two things we talk about, and you will easily guess why we say that this reminds us of that Jaideep Sani song from Khosla Ka Ghosla, Ye Duniya Oot Patanga, Sab Ulta Seedha Hai. Because India, any country in the world, any economy in the world, you can make a very large graveyard of airlines. Because airline business is a highly perishable business. There is the old story that, how to become a millionaire in no time, start as a billionaire and set up an airline. So forget that. I mean, that is one piece of wisdom that's gone on for a long time, rarely proven wrong, right? And you have many cases in your country. There is Vijay Mallya, there is Naresh Goyal. These were flying high. Then sort of like Icarus, they flew too high and had their wings burnt, and since then have been bankrupted, been in all kinds of legal troubles and things, and their airlines shut down. Now again, if you see the history of India, in India, Vayudu, Deccan Airline, Sahara, Kingfisher, Modi Luft, NEPC, Paramount, East West, these are all the airlines that shut down in our times. In our times means since private airlines were allowed in India. Vayudu, in fact, was a public sector airline, a rare public sector company to shut down. But again, when public sector shuts these down, they usually merge these with something else. So, ek ka liability, ek pocket se dusri pocket mein. So, I don't even see that as shutting down. Air India should have been shut down a long time back if it was run on financial logic. But it does not run on financial logic. It has the deepest pockets in the whole world, at least in the whole country, because it has the pockets of Government of India, and Government of India is a sovereign with the sovereign right to tax us. So Government of India can keep funding it. But again, if you make a graveyard of airlines in India, private airlines in India, it will be a very large one. And right now I'm confining myself to the airlines post-economic reform, that is airlines since private aviation was allowed. If I also count the airlines, private airlines that existed before Air India was nationalized, Air India used to be Tata run airline earlier. Before it was nationalized, or before airline business was nationalized, then the list will be even larger. Around the world, there is no great shame about airlines shutting down. In New York, if you are a little bit older, even if not as old as me, you might remember from your earlier visits to New York, to Manhattan, that one of the landmarks, the great landmarks of Manhattan as you look towards the Grand Central Station, used to be the Pan Am building. In the course of time, Pan Am shut down. Pan Am was the biggest airline, right? It shut down. Who had imagined Pan Am would shut down? And that building then became MetLife building. MetLife is an insurance company. So airlines shut down across the world. BOAC, which was the British official flag carrier, Swiss Air, which was Switzerland's flag carrier. Today, Swiss, which runs to Switzerland, which is like Switzerland's airline, is owned by Lufthansa. So all these airlines have shut down. What is the big deal? The big deal is not airlines shutting down. The big deal is an airline shut down and bankrupted coming back. That is what's happening in India, or that is what is promised to happen in India. So Jet Airways, which died about 2.5 years back, and in very bad situation with lots and lots of liabilities to all kinds of creditors, from banks to suppliers to those who had leased aircraft to it, to those it had ordered aircraft with, also most importantly to its employees, not just salaries, statutory dues, all kinds of things, right? That airline had shut down. That airline is now being revived because a very interesting and intriguing consortium of investors have bought into it. They bought into it for very little through NCLT process, that is the National Company Law Tribunal process, basically through the bankruptcy process, just over 1,000 crore rupees payable over 3-4 years. So this company owed the banks, suppliers, creditors upwards of 8,000 crores. So the haircut, as they call it, is like 90+%. So this haircut is like a mundan, right? It's like a tonsuring, जैसे तिरुपति में होता है जाके. But still, like you have a tonsuring, a little tuft is left, right? एक चुटिया थोड़ी सी बचती है. That's how this bankruptcy process has gone through. But who puts money in a dead airline, and who then commits to restarting that airline? So the reason also I talk about this today, that today is also when the financial bids, it was the last day for submitting financial bids for Air India. And looks like, as I was starting this, I saw on my TV screens, the Tata Group has submitted a bid. Now Tata Group has a bunch of other airlines. They have Air Vistara, they have Air Asia, so there might be a fit for them to merge one with the other. We'll see how this works out, and I'm hoping that this time government of India succeeds in selling this airline, because if they sell this airline, they will at least plug one breach that constantly leaks money in their system, that is Air India. Why should government be running airlines? Anyway, so that is on a day when that's going out, we again have stories that Jet Airways is going to be revived, except that its date of revival in terms of the date of its resumption of services has now been put off by another quarter. So it's the fourth postponement. Now it is planned that by March of next year, it will take off with its first flights after the shutdown. If that happens, it will be quite an incredible situation, that is sold out airline, that a bankrupted airline comes back. That doesn't happen. You see, all the airlines which have shut down in India over time, they have never come back. In fact, some of the airlines in India actually got bankrupted because they bought into already near bankrupt airlines, or airlines which should have been bankrupt. So see, in go-go times, everybody makes punts and everybody gambles. So in go-go times for India's economy, global economy, India's aviation, both Naresh Goyal and Vijay Mallya, that is the owners of Jet Airways and Kingfisher, they got into a big competition who will be the big boy of Indian aviation, and both then thought that two other companies which were doing badly, that is Sahara and Deccan, those were available for sale. So one way of scaling up is to acquire a running business. Except when you say an airline is running business, an airline is leaking losses all over the place, leaking money all over the place and building up losses, then you're not buying a running business, you are probably buying a ruined business. So Jet bought into Sahara and Kingfisher bought into Deccan. So both those entrepreneurs, the Sahara Group as well as Captain Gopinath, they cashed out with their bankrupted airlines, effectively bankrupted airlines that were running up losses, and both Naresh Goyal, that is Jet, and Vijay Mallya, that's Kingfisher, they built up huge liabilities and debt because each one was scared that if I don't buy an airline and the other guy buys an airline, the other guy will become bigger and take more market share. So us chakkar mein both sank. So the weight of those two airlines took these down. In this situation, what kind of a genius comes and says, I will revive an airline? Now, I can understand the logic, some part of the logic. And that part of the logic is that Jet Airways still is a very strong brand. It was the strongest aviation brand in India. It had a very strong and very valuable customer loyalty program, frequent flyer program, which actually has been sold now. It's now owned by another company in the Gulf. But it had strong customer loyalty and had a big name. But that customer loyalty was built at a big cost, at incredible service, incredible discipline, punctuality. It was the best airline without a doubt in whatever level or scale of service. Now, can somebody who comes in now replicate it? And if you replicate it, what kind of money will it take? And even if you bring in some bit of money, who will you be competing? Will you then be able to compete with a sort of re-energized Tata Group with its multiple airlines, Indigo and say SpiceJet, etc., ruling the budget sector, and then also Go Air somewhere there. So all those are issues that are for aviation experts to answer. I, on the other hand, looked at in some detail at people who are buying into Jet Airways, and that is the most interesting part and sort of the intriguing part. So one of them, the prime mover, is somebody called Murari Lal Jalan. Now, if you Google Murari Lal Jalan, you will not find very much on him. All I can find is that he's somebody who's mostly failed in any business he started. He's a businessman from Kolkata originally, as a lot of the Marwadi families do. Traded in paper, that didn't work too much, but bought a paper mill, Kanoi paper mill, something we used to be familiar with many decades ago. Then that got into environmental trouble, that business did not work, then got into real estate, some other businesses, moved to Dubai, did some stuff there. That building business in Dubai also did not work too well. Then set up a company with Patanjali for distributing Patanjali products. That company, that is Baba Ramdev's company, that company also does not seem to have done anything. So this consistent record of failure, and then he discovers some kind of an El Dorado, and that is in Uzbekistan and Russia. Uzbekistan, as you know, is a former Soviet republic. It became an independent sovereign republic in 1991 as the old Soviet Union broke down. Now, it's around Tashkent and in Uzbekistan that Sudhir Jalan has large businesses and large real estate developments. I believe, from whatever I read, that he enjoys quite a clout in Uzbekistan. In fact, if you go to his Twitter handle, which I did, it has very few tweets. He mainly tweets good wishes on various festivals. The first real tweet I see from him goes back to the day that Neeraj Chopra won his gold medal and congratulates him. Otherwise, it's Janmashtami ki badhai, it is Ganesh Chaturthi ki badhai, stuff like that. Again, interestingly, he follows only one Twitter handle, that is kun.uz. UZ is for Uzbekistan. And I checked, kun.uz is for Kun, which is one of the news and current affairs websites of Uzbekistan. So that's the only one he follows, and a whole bunch of people follow him. None of the names looks familiar to me. Interestingly, most of them sound like or read like Uzbek or Russian names. So he's very much somebody who looks like he's rooted in Russia and former Russian or former Soviet republics. His partner, or the consortium that is formed, is with a firm called Carl Rock Advisors. Now, Carl Rock, again, is not a very prominent private equity company or very prominent finance company. It is an advisory. It is an advisory run by a man, headed by a man called Florian Fritsch. Florian Fritsch is a German, but again, if you research him, different descriptions come up, including that he used to be a racing car driver, had an accident, then stopped car racing, then gone into businesses, then made some good investments and made a bit of money, including some investment with Arnold Schwarzenegger's nephew, and he's got money and he also arranges funds to be invested. Now, a lot of his investments, again, if I read his website, sound like very adventurous investments, and he says that. So in fact, if you go to his website, as you open his website homepage, you see a quote. It pops out at you, and I will read that quote to you. Maybe some of you will figure out who this is from, but I will tell you. The quote is, quote, "The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence. It is to act with yesterday's logic." Hello, you're looking at an airline that failed, right? Turbulence and airlines go together. This airline could not survive a turbulence, maybe that it created itself. It created a perfect storm for itself and did not survive it. Now you are moving it, following the same logic, to buy that airline. Now, are you doing it with yesterday's logic? That is, airline was very successful and a leading company, or are you doing it with tomorrow's logic? That is not something we know. But it's interesting that this website, like its guiding principle or guiding motto, has this quote from Peter Drucker, management guru, who else? So this quote is from Peter Drucker. The other thing that I find very interesting about this company is that in their statement of purpose, they say the first line is, this world is passing through an era of VUCA. VUCA, V-U-C-A. What is VUCA? I've heard this for the first time. But VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. Jet Airways shut down for more than 2 years. It has everything. It faces volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And ambiguity is also Indian law and Indian regulation and stuff like that. For example, one big question is that now that they revived the company with the same brand name, do they get the rights? Do they inherit the rights to slots, to parking slots? How many flights, for example, between Delhi and Mumbai? Because that is the big cash cow sector in India. Now, regulators, including the Ministry of Civil Aviation, have been saying that, look, you can't just hoard your sites. If an airline shuts down, we give those slots away to others, and slots are given away to others. We can't take them back and give them to you. And yet, Karl Rock has advised Murari Lal Jalan to get into this business. So maybe it is the other way around, because Karl Rock also says that this VUCA situation, that is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, it also creates special situations, opportunities. So you have to be, I suppose, quite adventurous to get into an area like that. You have to be very adventurous to start an airline. You have to be doubly adventurous to start an airline and then buy another airline. And you have to be several times more adventurous to pick up a dead airline and then put in money to revive it. That's the reason I said this is the case of Ye Duniya Oot Patanga. Now, the other story is coal. So I remember an old headline from my journalism classes, when one of our teachers told us that, look, this is how you write a beautiful headline. British paper writes the best headlines, he said. This is my class in 1975-76. And he quoted a headline from the Times of London that said, King Coal makes a comeback, right? Coal as in the mineral, to generate energy from it. So I'm taking you back 1975-76 when King Coal made a comeback. Today, coal is in bad odor all over the world. You know, climate talks are going on. Coal is the biggest culprit. It is the biggest CO2 generator. It is ruining our environment. It is leading to global warming. John Kerry has just been in Delhi talking to his Indian counterparts, trying to get India on board to move towards zero net emission. All the coal that is traded in the world, India and China import 65% of it. Also, all the coal that's consumed in the world, the Asia Pacific region accounts for 80% of it. So you would have thought that with all this pressure on curtailing coal use, all this pressure on moving into renewables, India is now becoming a big renewable power. India's strides in solar power are tremendous, humongous, and very, very impressive. You would have thought, and that also because of this, nobody is investing in coal industry anymore. New mines, nobody is investing in. New technologies, nobody is investing in. So coal is now dead. Coal is a dying business. It is a dying business. And yet, you know what's happened? What's happened is that in the last year, the price of coal has gone up. How much? It has gone up from $50 to $177 per ton. That is more than 3.5 times. So how did that happen? The price actually has doubled from January to say 10th of September. 10th of September, the price was $177.5 per ton. It's doubled since January in 10 months. But if you go back exactly a year, it has gone up from $50 to $177. That's why this is another story of the world turning upside down. Duniya Oot Patanga. Now, what this has done is, this has caused all kinds of confusion. It's caused all kinds of confusion because coal is a commodity which everybody had given up on. It was dead and gone, and people were just waiting now for it to be, sorry to use that expression, it was dead. People were waiting to be buried as India and China move towards other sources of energy, and both countries are doing it. China is actually committed to cutting down its coal consumption from 2026 onwards. India also has similar targets, and both countries will cut down. So why should the price of coal go up? Now what's happened over the past year is that all commodity prices in the world are up. Oil is up, copper is up, aluminum is up, because all the pent up demand after the pandemic has caused for supplies to become short, and this business is all supply and demand. All business is supply and demand. Today there is so much trade and so much stuff is going from one country to the other. There is a massive global container shortage, that the freight rates have gone up several times. So in that situation, because countries like India and China are also now reviving their industry, demand for power has gone up, so demand for coal has gone up, because a lot of our power generation, majorly our power generation is still based on coal, and that is how the demand for coal has gone up. Then some other factors have come in. China has shut down a lot of its smaller coal firms because they were getting to see a lot of coal mine accidents, and that was giving their country a bad name. Indonesia had heavy rainfall, which led to a lot of its coal mines not producing enough. Indonesia is among the world's largest exporters of coal. Then China stopped buying Australian coal, so it started buying from elsewhere. So the whole market got distorted, and that is how these prices now have risen to such unrealistic levels. Now certainly these prices are not going to remain like this for a long time. Prices may exceed the highest ever coal price, which was in the go-go months of 2008, just before the global financial crisis came in and calmed things down. So in the business of commodities now, you see a similar excess playing out in the world. It's a matter of time before this bubble this balloon will get punctured. But right now, coal, just as reviving a dead airline, is so contrarian and so counterintuitive. Similarly, the price revival and such an increase of a dead commodity which deserves to be dead, coal, the dirtiest of all commodities, is also a contrarian and counterintuitive story. And I promised you there's a third thing which I'm not talking about in detail now, but I told you that I will let you know what this is about. This is Evergrande, the big real estate company in China. The Chinese big real estate company is so big that it owns 2% of all of China's real estate. Now that company is having a meltdown because it's not able to service its debt, and that has caused its investors now to protest, to riot. All kinds of interesting things are happening. So I thought that deserved probably a cut the clutter in itself. So let that situation develop. In the course of time, maybe tomorrow, maybe in the next couple of days, we'll talk about this in some detail.